Hi everyone, welcome to the third webinar of a series of webinars conducted by TCS in lieu of the upcoming strategic case study examinations happening in May 2023. My name is Nick and I'm the lead tutor and evaluator for SCS at TCS. So let's look at the session outcomes for tonight. So I'll be taking you through answering technique and connected with it. I'll also highlight time management technique because as per my experience as a CIMA tutor, I've seen on so many occasions students failing the SCS exam because of not having an appropriate answering technique. And on top of that, most students run out of time at the SCS exam. And, since you are supposed to play the role of a senior finance manager, if you run out of time, it's as if you are, providing half-hearted responses or half-hearted answers to your CFO or any board member. And if that is the case, it would reflect extremely badly on you in a real life corporate setting. So since the CIMA examiner is trying to recreate or replicate a real life corporate setting, then in such a context, if you provide half-hearted answers or if your answer is incomplete because you ran out of time, then there's absolutely no way that you would pass this exam, especially because this is the last hurdle which you need to clear before you become a CIMA passed finalist. So in such a context, you need to make sure that you provide high quality answers, and on top of that you end up finishing the entire answer. So in order to provide complete answers, you need to have an in-depth understanding about answer planning technique as well as how to manage your time appropriately. So both these areas will be covered whilst I will cover the theoretical elements pertaining to answering technique as well as time management technique. And I will also, display to you guys how to apply these techniques in a practical sense based on a discussion which I'm going to conduct, which is based on task number 1 of the mini mock. So I've already developed an answer plan for the mini mock, and based on that, I will explain how you are supposed to practically implement these answering as well as time management techniques at your real exam. And as part of the fourth part of tonight's session, I will be talking about what you need to do to bounce back from failure. There could be a set of students who are here who could not clear the SCS exam last time, but if you understand the points which I would suggest at the very end of tonight's webinar, I will be highlighting common reasons for failure, and for each failure I will be highlighting a solution. So if you stick to these solutions, if you adhere to these guidelines which we are providing, then definitely you will be able to pass your SCS exam this time, because mind you, out of the 3 CIMA case studies, OCS, MCS and SCS, the strategic case study is the easiest to pass. Okay, the hardest is the operational case study because it's a highly technical exam. 80% of weightage is provided for technical syllabus content, but that is not the case when you look at the strategic case study examination. 80% of the weightage is provided for practical decision making. So if you are really conversant with, so if you are able to understand the requirements clearly, if you are able to understand the information which is provided as part of a scenario clearly, and if you can easily understand the requirements, then your chances of passing this exam is extremely high. That's why I'm saying that this is the easiest out of the 3 case studies. So if you adhere to these answer planning, time management, as well as answer structuring technique, then you can easily pass this exam. Okay, so before we move forward, let me remind you about the webinar schedule. So we have already had 2 webinars. I hope you would have checked these 2 webinars out. In the first one, I provided a 6-week study plan based on the study plan, which you can find on our website as well. I will be taking you through the study plan, thereby focusing your attention towards what you need to do in the upcoming week. And in the second webinar, I conducted a pre-scene analysis. So as part of this pre-scene analysis, so we usually conduct 4 pre-scene analysis sessions, and out of the 4 sessions, the first one was carried out via this webinar. So if you missed out on it, you can always go check it out. And out of the 4 webinars, the most important is the answering technique webinar, because this is where you learn how to apply theory into your answers, as well as you learn how to come up with properly structured answers, high quality answers, as well as how to manage your time. So I'm going to cover all these things in tonight's webinar, as I told you earlier. And in the 4th and final webinar, which is happening on Saturday, the 29th of April, I'll be talking about what you need to do when it comes to preparing for your examination. So the first part of the upcoming webinar, or the 4th webinar, which is supposed to happen on the 29th of April, I'll be talking about or I'll be taking you through the examiner's comments, because it's of utmost importance that you understand what the examiner requests from you, or what the examiner's requirements are. So that's exactly why I'm going to take you through the examiner's comments. Then you are in a position to understand the mindset of the examiner. And after understanding the mindset of the examiner, you just need to adhere to these tips as well as requirements highlighted by the examiner. Then you can easily pass the exam. And in the second part of the 4th webinar, the upcoming webinar, I will be highlighting about what you need to do to develop confidence both before the exam as well as at your real exam, because as per the CIMA examiner, confident students end up passing the exam comfortably. So with that in mind, we are highlighting, or will be providing certain hints in order to ensure that you have a positive mindset both before the exam as well as whilst attempting your exam. And if you stick to our study plan, then you can achieve this level of confidence as well as positivity. I will be talking about these things in the 4th webinar in depth. All right, so let's move on to tonight's content. So first things first, I'm gonna highlight about answering technique. So when developing your answers, first things first, you need to focus on the use of headings and subheadings. Okay, so as per the CIMA examiner, when providing answers, you are supposed to come up with headings and subheadings. Do not number your headings and subheadings. Do not mention the task number. Instead, just imagine that you are receiving an email from your CFO or some other board member, and in such a context, just imagine the type of answers you are supposed to provide, or the type of a response you are going to type, thereby satisfying the needs of a board member or a CFO. So when you are typing an email, you would use headings and subheadings to faction out the answer. So per subtask, you need to come up with a main heading, and within the main heading, if you feel that you need to further faction out the answer, then you are invited to utilize subheadings. So a heading needs to be in bold and underlined format, and a subheading needs to be in just bold format. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So as you can see, within the first question, there are 3 subtasks in total: subtask A, B, and C. And as I told you earlier, for each subtask, you need to come up with a main heading which is in bold and underlined format. So let me quickly show you the suggested answer. So as you can see, there's a main heading in here which reads as financial analyst's comment, which is in bold and underlined format. And there's another, the second main heading, which goes as director's salaries, again in bold and underlined format. And the third heading goes as strategy reducing the impact of carbon loss. Okay, so again, this is in bold and underlined format. Give me a second, please, guys. Couple of people are in the waiting room. Okay, done. All right, sorry about that. So this is the third main heading, which is in bold and underline format. So as I told you earlier, within this question, there are 3 subtasks, and for each subtask, I've utilized a main heading, as per thereby sticking to the requirements of the examiner. So you are supposed to use headings as well as subheadings, a heading per subtask, and within one single subtask, if you feel that you need to further fraction out your answer, you can utilize subheadings, as I told you earlier, and this needs to be in bold format. And whenever you are providing answers, you are supposed to provide answers in paragraphs, which consists of 2 to 4 sentences. Okay, so let me show you what I'm talking about. So throughout this answer, you can't see any single line sentences or bullet points. Instead, what you can see is paragraphs and paragraphs of answers. So when providing your answers, you are supposed to do it in paragraphs, and each paragraph needs to consist something like 2 to 4 sentences. Okay, so I'll highlight further about these paragraphs, because these paragraphs need to be aligned with the answer structure or the answer plan which you are utilizing. So I will show you what an answer plan looks like later on. So within your answer plan, let's assume that there are 9 valid points. If there are 9 valid points, you need to have 9 paragraphs within your answer. So why am I asking you to develop a paragraph per answer point? If you do that, the invigilator's life becomes easy, because the invigilator can easily count and see how many points you have highlighted within your answer. For instance, I've seen students, when developing their answers, there's a tendency for most students to write the entire answer within 1 or 2 paragraphs. So within a single paragraph, a student might highlight 5 to 6 valid answer points. However, when it comes to marking, the marker's life becomes extremely difficult. Why? Because he or she needs to pick and select the answer points which are highlighted within one single paragraph. So in order to be in the good books of the examiner, if you are in the good books of the examiner, you'd get good marks. So in order to be in the good books of the examiner, it's better to adhere to the guidelines provided by the CIMA examiner. So what are the guidelines? Develop a paragraph per answer point. So the invigilator can easily pick and select each and every answer point, because there is a proper structure within your answer. You have adhered to the guidelines provided by the CIMA examiner. Okay, and so that's about paragraphs. Then what are you supposed to do when it comes to managing your time? So as you know, at your exam, the total time allocation is 3 hours. So the time allocation per task, since there are 3 tasks within your exam paper, the time allocation per task is 60 minutes. So how are you supposed to utilize this 60 minutes to your advantage? Okay, so 1/3 of the time should be allocated towards reading the question and developing something called an answer plan. I'll highlight what I'm talking about later. Okay, so 1/3 of the time should be allocated towards reading the question and developing an answer plan. So you can take something like 5 minutes to read the question. Okay, then allocate something like 15 to 20 minutes. I would say you can take more than that as well. Even if you take 25 to 30 minutes to develop the answer plan, that's totally fine, because still you would have 30 minutes at your disposal to type the answer. Okay, so I do not want you guys to read the question and straight away start typing the answer. That's the wrong approach, because I've seen students doing that. But what actually happens is, when you read the question and straight away start typing the answer, you are not spending any time to plan the answer appropriately, because you can't multitask, especially even if you're good at multitasking, especially since you are under exam stress. You can't do 2 things at the same time. You can't plan as well as type. That's the wrong approach. Instead, allocate a certain amount of time, 15 to 20 minutes, to develop the answer for the entire task. And once you have a structure at your disposal, then when it comes to expanding these answer points, or when it comes to typing the fully fledged answers, your life becomes easy, because when it comes to typing, You are not supposed to think about anything. Instead, your focus is only towards expanding the answer points. So within these 15 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes where you are developing the answer plan, you are thinking, you are trying to come up with the best answer. And after you have developed the answer plan, you can go back to the question and see whether you have fulfilled the requirements fully or not. So that's a best practice which you need to adhere to, because what I've seen is most students, right after reading the question, they start typing the answer, and halfway through they realize that their answer and the requirement, there's no connection between the answer and the requirement which is highlighted within the question. So because of that, after realizing it, they end up deleting the entire answer. So in the back of your mind, you know for a fact that you have wasted enough time, and because of that, you would try to provide a rushed answer, because if you provide an incomplete answer, you can't pass the exam. So you try to provide a rushed answer, and this leads to a lot of stress. And let's assume you screwed up your answer pertaining to task number 1, and this leads to stress. Because of that, you screw up your answers pertaining to tasks 2 and 3 as well. So rather than coming up with or trying to create, rather than you yourself creating a stressful environment, rather than coming up with answers which are not well thought out, it's better to adhere to these answer planning technique. So if you adhere to these guidelines, you are supposed to allocate 5 minutes to read the question and understand the requirement clearly. And once you are done with it, you are supposed to move on to the next step, which is to develop the answer plan for the entire task. Ideally, it needs to take something like 15 to 20 minutes of your time. So within this time, you are spending a certain amount of time to plan your answer. You are involved with thinking. Yeah, you are trying to come up with the best answer. So once you and on top of that, if you stick to this answer planning technique, you will come up with a well-structured answer. You can always think as to what type of pre-seen information can be brought into your answer to increase the value, right? So once you allocate a certain amount of time to think, then the quality of the answer will improve significantly. And utilizing the remaining 30 to 35 minutes, you can simply expand your answer points, thereby provide fully fledged answers. So expected typing speed is a minimum of 20 words per minute. If your typing speed is not up to par, I would suggest you to check out so many services. There are software out there which can be easily downloaded. So make use of these things to ensure that your typing speed is up to par. And when developing the answer plans, you need to understand the mark allocation for each and every subtask. So what am I talking about? So you can see the mark allocations in here in the first page of your exam, as well as whilst attempting the exam. Under each task, you would see a percentage provided or a weightage provided. Subtask A, the percentage or the weightage is 25%, subtask B 25%, and subtask C 50%. So by looking at these weightages, you are in a position to determine how many marks are allocated for each and every subtask. Okay, so the total mark allocation per task is 50 marks. So the mark allocation for subtask A is 25% of 50 marks, which comes up to 12.5 marks, if I'm not mistaken. And the same should be said about subtask B. The mark allocation based on the weightage is 12.5 marks, and based on the weightage provided, the mark allocation for subtask C is 25 marks. So once you know the mark allocations, you will realize how many points or how many answer points you need to have within your answer plan. So you are following a structured method. You understand the mark allocations, and based on that, you develop answers or develop answer points. And once you have the required amount of answer points, your life becomes extremely easy when it comes to typing the entire answer. So when typing the entire answer, you'd ensure that you gain the most amount of marks. Why? Because you have thought about the mark allocations before you started typing your answer. Okay. And Do not spend time on formatting, such as focusing on paragraph alignment. The only type of formatting you need to focus on is with regards to coming up with headings and subheadings, as well as providing answers in paragraphs. Other than that, do not think about any other type of formatting. And remember, it's always about the quality of the points, not the quantity. So there's absolutely no point you trying to come up with extremely lengthy answers. Just because you provide a lengthy answer, you're not going to get marks. Instead, focus on quality. That's exactly why we want you guys to focus on the answer planning technique. If you do, then you'd focus on quality, and the examiner, the CIMA examiner, is also asking you to focus on quality, and you'd satisfy the marker. Because I need to highlight, I actually forgot to tell you this. Although you take 3 hours to attempt your paper, an invigilator or a marker usually takes something like 10 to 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes to mark your entire paper. So it's good to be in the good books of the invigilator. So stick to these guidelines provided by the CIMA examiner, then you can pass your exam without any hindrances. Okay, so when it comes to developing answers, what are the steps which you need to adhere to? First things first, you need to read the scenario. So that's pretty basic. I said you are supposed to allocate something like 15 minutes of your time to do this. So read the scenario thoroughly, go through the reference material, because remember, each task will definitely have a reference material. I've seen students failing because they say that they forgot to click on the button which says reference material. So, if you do that, that's, a major mistake which you can commit, because especially at the SCS level, without the information which is provided in the reference material, you cannot provide a good answer. So always remember, when attempting each task, there will be reference material. And that's exactly why we have developed our own exam platform, which is akin to the Pearson VUE system, which you'd use at the real exam, so that you can get yourself accustomed to the exam platform. And if you miss reference material when attempting a mock exam and end up getting extremely low marks, then you'd remember this mistake. You won't do the same mistake at the real exam. So that's exactly why we've been telling you throughout these webinars to, when it comes to attempting the 5 mocks, you are supposed to do it within our exam platform, so that you get yourself accustomed to the technicalities pertinent to the exam platform, and these mistakes or shortcomings can be avoided at your real exam. So you are supposed to, that's something else. So you are supposed to read the scenario first, and after you read the scenario or the question, you are supposed to plot the requirements into headings and subheadings. So I said, when you are supposed to start developing your answers, you are supposed to develop headings and subheadings. That's exactly what I'm suggesting as the second step. So you read the scenario first, plot the requirements into headings and subheadings, then invest time to understand the requirement clearly. So again, you are going back to the scenario and trying to figure out whether you have understood your requirements properly or not. Okay, so that's the third step. Then after you are satisfied with understanding the requirement, when you feel that you have actually understood the requirement, then you have to invest time on answer planning. So 1/3 of the time should be allocated towards developing something called an answer plan, or you can call it an answer structure as well. And 15 to 20 minutes should be allocated towards this exercise. And when developing the answer plan, I want you guys to do it on the or develop the answer plan on the answer screen itself. Do not ever use the scratch pad, because for one, if you look at the scratch pad, it's an inefficiency, because you'd have to keep shifting between your scratch pad and the answer screen. Okay, that in itself is a discrepancy or an inefficiency. And on top of that, let's assume you developed your answer plan within the scratch pad, and when trying to develop your fully fledged answers, you might miss out on a certain point which appears within your scratch pad. And because of that, your fully fledged answer does not have the required number of answer points. Let's assume when you develop the answer plan within the scratchpad, it had 8 answer points, but you miss out on one. And your paragraph, when you look at the paragraphs, you just have 8 paragraphs. So why should you miss out on a point when you have thought about something and when you had, jotted down a valid point within your answer plan? Why should you miss it out when developing the answer? So in order to avoid all these types of inefficiencies, I want you guys to develop the answer plan on the answer screen itself. And once you have done it, the next step is to expand the points which are highlighted within the answer plans in paragraphs. So when you do it, when you develop the answer plan within the answer screen itself, you won't miss out on any points. You won't have to shift between the answer screen and the scratchpad. Instead, you can totally focus on your answer plan and expanding the answer plan in paragraphs when coming up with your final answer. So that's what you're supposed to do when it comes to developing answers. So you are supposed to adhere to these steps. I will highlight how to adhere to these steps by taking you through a mini mock, which I'm going to discuss right now. So before we move on to this discussion of the mini mock, where I'm going to highlight the answer planning and time management technique in a practical sense, do you have any questions, guys? If you have any questions, you can switch your mics and talk, or simply drop your message on the chat section. Any questions, folks? All right, seems like there aren't any more questions. So because of that, I'm going to move on to discussion of the mini mock. So when doing that, as I told you earlier, I will be focusing on the mini mock, which we have already uploaded onto our website. So, as you can see, this is the student dashboard. Once you log into our website, let me show you how to do it. Yeah. So click on this button. Once you log into our website, click on the SCS page and click on the free content button, where you'd be taken to a page where you need to create a user account. And once you have done it, you would have access to this free content. So the recorded versions of the webinars will be uploaded. You won't have access to any study material, only the answer planning technique or the answer plan pertinent to mini mock task number 1 will be shared with you guys under the free content. And you'd have access to mini mock, the questions, as well as its suggested answers. You won't have access to the exam platform as well. Okay, so let's look at the mini mock. As I told you earlier, the first requirement, I've made a blunder here. I'm extremely sorry about it. It needs to be 60 minutes. I'll, upload the accurate or the corrected version in a little while after the webinar is done. So for the first task, the number of subtasks are 3, and they have given you certain weightages, 25%, 25%, and 50%. That's exactly what you can see in here as well. Okay, so let's go through the requirement. Section 1, a 60-minute question. You receive the following email from Rasim Hamid, your CFO. Okay, so you are playing the role of a senior finance manager, and your CFO is sending you an email. And let's look at the subject. This email is about autonomous vehicles, governance, and sustainability. Okay, the board commissioned a special report to evaluate the potential costs and benefits of incorporating autonomous delivery vehicles into Daistruk's fleet. So if you had gone through the pre-seed material, as well as if you have attended our second webinar, you would have understood what Daistruk is up to. These times, SCS case study is based on a logistics services provider. So at the moment, we are not utilizing autonomous delivery vehicles within our fleet. But according to this question, the board is considering about the potential costs and benefits of bringing in autonomous delivery vehicles within our fleet. The report revealed that this move would offer substantial cost advantages and disrupt existing market dynamics. So the existing market dynamics are going to change, which is going to significantly drive our competitive edge. And on top of that, we'll be exposed to cost advantages as well. Furthermore, the use of cleaner fuels by these vehicles. Why cleaner fuels? Because these are autonomous delivery vehicles, and these are self-drive delivery vehicles. And since this technology is new, most of these self-drive delivery vehicles come with um, you know energy efficient technology, and on top of that there's a lot of fuel efficiency provided. And these delivery vehicles are known to be sustainable because they do not run on fossil fuels. Instead, they run on alternative cleaner energy. Furthermore, the use of cleaner fuels by these vehicles would make them more energy efficient and environmentally friendly than the current fleet. Financial analysts have also indicated that the company's revenues and beta will likely increase in the future due to the cost efficiencies gained and the rising demand for environmentally conscious logistics operations. So, as per the information provided, there's an increased demand for this type of environmentally conscious logistics operations. And because of this new technology, or us adopting this new technology, there's going to be cost efficiencies, and and the revenue is going to increase because this type of services are in demand. However, our beta is supposed to increase as well. Okay, so let's look at the requirement. You are supposed to explain the financial analyst's comment with regards to Daistruk adopting autonomous vehicles within its logistics operations. Okay, so you need to evaluate what the financial analysts have said about this investment. So what are these guys talking about? These guys are saying that utilizing this fleet is going to be environmentally friendly, and these vehicles, autonomous vehicles, are going to be energy efficient. So in such a context, we'll be exposed to reduced operational costs, and on top of that, our revenues will increase because this opens up the market for a different customer segment who are environmentally conscious. And on top of that, although these benefits are there, the financial analysts are saying that our beta is gonna increase. So these are the areas which you are supposed to cover within your answer. You are supposed to explain the financial analyst's comments with regards to Daistruk adopting autonomous vehicles within its logistics operations. So these are highly practical answer which you are supposed to provide, because all the information is provided within the question. You are supposed to evaluate each and every question. All right, so what I've done is, I've just highlighted the mark allocations. So the first requirement wants you to, as per the information provided within the first requirement, you are supposed to analyze the financial analyst's comments. So as I told you earlier, when it comes to developing the answer plan, it's a matter of, you are supposed to read the scenario first, then plot the requirements into headings and subheadings. So that's exactly what I've done here. For the first area, it's about evaluating the FA's comments. So FA's comments, I've provided the main heading in a summarized format, FA's comments, and then invest time to understand the requirement clearly. So what is the requirement? You are supposed to explain the financial analyst's comment. So that's exactly what you can see by looking at the main heading as well. Okay, and plan the answer first, utilizing maximum of 1/3 of your time to develop the answer plan. So let's look at what you are supposed to do when developing the answer plan. So step number one, as I told you earlier, is determine the headings. So I haven't gone through the remaining parts, so I'm not gonna highlight them right now. I'm just gonna focus your attention towards the first main heading which I've utilized, which is in bold and underlined format, FA's comments. Then step two, subheadings if needed, and coming up with bullet points. So once you have the main heading, it's just a matter of coming up with subheadings if needed, if you want to further faction out your answer. The next step is to come up with bullet points or developing the answer plan or the answer structure. All right, FA's comments. So, I'm first talking about this diversification. We are pursuing related diversification, thereby introducing autonomous vehicles within our fleet. And this leads to increased cash flows as per what the financial analyst is telling us. So if we are exposed to increased cash flows, we can pay higher dividends in the future, and higher the dividend payments, the more satisfied our shareholders are going to be. So if we are to be in the good books of our shareholders, it's better to pay them high dividends, and that's exactly what we can achieve because of this investment. We'd be exposed to increased cash flows, and on top of that, we'd see increased profits as well, and this will increase our share price. So when profitability increases, the share price increases, and when the share price increases, again the shareholders will be satisfied. So usually shareholders are two types. One set of shareholders are looking for dividends, and the other set of shareholders are looking for increased share prices. So we are satisfying both these two different types of shareholders by pursuing this diversification. Okay. And although this is the case, initially we'll be exposed to extremely high costs because we'd have to do significant investments on these new type of vehicles. However, in the long run, our operational costs will decrease because of the said operational efficiencies. And on top of that, I'm bringing in some knowledge from the pre-scene. This was not mentioned within the scenario or the question, but I'm bringing in knowledge from the pre-scene. Driver salaries or drivers play a major role within Daistruk's. If you look at Daistruk's business model, drivers play a major role. So we can eliminate the use of drivers, thereby achieving significant operational efficiencies in this area as well. So initially, although we'd have to do major investments, which is going to expose us to extremely high costs, in the long run, the costs will decrease due to operational efficiencies as well as because of the elimination of driver salaries. And we are exposed to additional revenues as per the financial analysts because with the introduction of these autonomous vehicles, our market is opening up to a new customer segment. Which new customer segment am I talking about? The environmentally conscious customers. So this is mentioned within the question. So that's exactly what I've highlighted here. However, we need to monitor additional operational costs of managing or operating autonomous vehicles because these vehicles run on sensors. So we'd have to keep replacing the sensors. And on top of that, there could be other practical issues when operating autonomous delivery vehicles. So in such a context, we'd have to handle these costs. So although we are exposed to additional revenues as well as operational efficiencies, I'm also suggesting that it's better to monitor additional operational costs, which are, which we will be exposed to because of us using autonomous vehicles. And then I'm moving on to explaining the beta. Our current beta is 1.27. So again, I'm bringing in information from the pre-scene. And as I told you earlier, when bringing in information, you are not supposed to bring in general information which has no relevance to the requirement or no relevance to the answer which you are developing. Instead, whenever you are bringing in information, you have to do it with the intention of increasing the value of your answer. There's absolutely no point of, coming up with or replicating general information just to show to the invigilator that you have gone through the pre-scene. You are not going to get any marks. Instead, whenever you are, mentioning pre-scene information, do it in a way that it adds value to your answer. So that's exactly what I've done here. Within the question, the financial analysts are talking about the beta increasing. So it's, pretty obvious that you need to talk about the current beta before you, evaluate the comments made by the financial analysts about the beta. So the current beta is 1.27, which highlights that we are attracting risk positive investors. Why is this the case? Because if you have a beta, or if any company has a beta which is above 1, then that shows that, indicates that the average share price is a bit higher than the average market rate, or our share price is bit higher than the average market rate. And because of that, it also indicates that our shares are a bit volatile relative to the average. Okay, so 1.27, since our beta is above 1, it attracts risk positive investors. And these risk positive investors, what would they look for? Because they are taking a risk by investing on our shares, they'll ask for a higher return. Okay, so that's a point which you need to mention as well. I've mentioned it later on within the answer. So the beta is increasing. Because of that, the volatility of shares are increasing, which makes our shares a bit riskier. Okay, and in the short term, because of that, our share prices might dip, because our demand for our shares will decrease, with that the share price will dip in the short term. And because of this, in the short term, we'll be exposed towards an increased cost of equity as well, because when it comes to when the demand for our shares decreases, when it comes to raising equity finance, we'd have to pay more dividends to attract investors. So when the beta increases, we'd have to pay more dividends to keep our investors within the business, or to attract risk-seeking investors. So in such a context, in the short term, the cost of equity is gonna increase. In the long run, however, we'll be exposed to reduced risk due to better profits and cash flows. So as I told you earlier, initially there'll be higher costs, but in the long run, these costs will decrease and we'll be exposed to new revenue channels. So with all these things coming in, our profits and cash flows are going to increase in the future. So in the long run, our risk will significantly reduce. All right. So I've evaluated all the points which have been highlighted by the financial analysts within the question. All right, then moving on to the second subtask. Further, Elham Andrudi, operations director, has highlighted that the workload of board members had increased significantly due to the planned diversification. Okay, so one of the board members, the operations director, is saying that because of this new initiative, the workload of the board members has increased, and he has thus suggested that it is prudent to increase salaries of all executive directors. So since the responsibilities had increased, these guys, the directors, are asking for higher salaries. You are supposed to evaluate the operations director's suggestion with regards to salary increment. So in the first subtask, you were supposed to evaluate the comments made by the financial analyst. Now you are supposed to evaluate the suggestions made by the operations director. Okay, so let's stick to the same set of guidelines. Step number 1, determining headings, director salaries. It's in bold and underlined format. Step number 2, utilizing subheadings if needed and coming back with bullet points. So that's exactly what I've done here. Director salaries, main heading. Because of that, it's in bold and underlined format. Then after that, I've come up with a set of points, or I've come up with an answer plan. So first things first, I'm highlighting whether it's legitimate for these directors to ask for increased salaries or not. I'm saying that it is legitimate for directors to request higher salaries. Why? Because it appears that their concerns about their workload increasing is accurate, because the business's beta has increased. So in such a context, you'd have to as a director, your workload will definitely increase, because you would have to come up with extra measures to mitigate risks which you would face in the future. Okay, because whenever the beta increases, beta is already a bit high, 1.27, and if it further increases, you would have to face a lot of shareholder pressure. Okay, and media will be questioning you, as well as the regulator might be alarmed, or regulators might start questioning you. And so would connected stakeholders such as the airlines and the shipping companies who are working with you at the moment. All right, so you'd have to deal a lot of stakeholders, and on top of that, with the business risk increasing, you would have to come up with better risk mitigatory strategies. So all these things will lead to an increased workload. So I'm saying that the directors are right to say that their workload has increased. And with that, I'm also suggesting that it's better to pay them higher salaries. However, when paying them higher salaries, directors should not decide on how much they are going to get remunerated. Instead, it should be handled by the remuneration committee. Why are we doing it? To avoid a conflict of interest. So if you look at real life examples, companies such as Enron, WorldCom, these companies created huge scandals. In what happened within these companies, the main thing was there weren't any remuneration committees. So the directors decided about their remuneration on their own. So when that happens, usually it leads to fat cat benefits. And in such a context, the shareholders are losing out. Instead, the directors are benefiting from such arrangements. So in order to avoid this type of conflict of interest, directors should not decide upon their remuneration packages. Instead, the remuneration packages should be set by the remuneration committee. And within the remuneration committee, majority of non-executive directors should be seen. And according to pre-seen information, we conform to this because out of the composition of the remuneration committee, there are 3 directors within the remuneration committee, out of which 2 are independent non-executive directors. So we conform to the corporate governance regulation or guidelines pertaining to the composition of the remuneration committee. Again, I'm bringing in information from the pre-scene, and this is relevant because this is extremely relevant to the point which I've highlighted about the remuneration committee. So in such a context, you would get good marks at your exam. And as I told you earlier, the board responsibilities have increased. So the when paying higher salaries, I'm suggesting it's better to pay these guys higher salaries. So when paying higher salaries, the remuneration committee should benchmark with salaries paid by other 3PLs. So rather than coming up with a number out of thin air, it's better to see how much the other 3PLs are paying their directors and try to figure out a good or try to come up with a good benchmark and then stipulate by how much we are supposed to increase the salaries of our own directors. And when doing this, the objective should be to, when paying these salaries, the objective should be to attract and retain capable directors. Okay, so this is totally aligned with what is highlighted within the question. So the question talks about directors' remuneration. So I'm saying that when talking about remuneration or taking decisions about remuneration, that needs to be done by the RC or the remuneration committee. And their objective should be to attract and retain capable directors. So if we pay these guys when their responsibilities increases, if we pay them properly, then it's easier to attract and retain capable directors. Okay. However, the salaries should not be excessive. That's exactly why I'm saying before paying these guys, it's better to benchmark with other 3PLs and see how much their directors are getting paid. And sometimes, once we are doing this evaluation, we might figure out that we have to appoint new directors, because if the workload increases, then we'd have to appoint a new director rather than just paying salaries. We have the other option of appointing a new director looking in who has the sole responsibility of looking into autonomous vehicles and related technical aspects of these things. So we might have to appoint a new director. If so, the nomination committee should handle it. So again, the director should not nominate an individual or appoint an individual into the board. Instead, the nomination committee should handle it. This is in line with the corporate governance regulations, which are highlighted as part of the E3 and P3 syllabuses. Okay. And again, looking at the composition of the nomination committee, non-executive directors should dominate. And as per the information provided within the pre-scene, we do not conform to these guidelines because we have 3 directors within the nomination committee. However, there's only 1 non-executive director within the nomination committee. And on top of that, our non-executive chairperson is sitting within the non-executive committee, which again goes against the corporate governance guidelines, because according to CG guidelines, the non-exec chairman or any chairman for that matter is not supposed to sit within the nomination, remuneration, or the audit committee. But if you look at the audit and the nomination committee, the non-exec chair is there. So we are not conforming to these guidelines, which exposes us to governance risk. Okay. So that's my answer pertaining to director salary. So again, as you can see, I've utilized all the information which is provided in the question. And on top of that, I brought in some information from the pre-scene. And again, I've brought in theoretical knowledge pertaining to corporate governance as well. Then you are in a position to come up with a well thought out, well planned answer, well structured answer. That's exactly why I want you guys to allocate a certain amount of time to develop the answer plan. If not, if you start typing the answer straight away, you can't, come up with all these points. You can't ensure that theoretical knowledge is brought in. You can't ensure that all the points which are highlighted within the question had been addressed. And on top of that, you can't ensure that you bring in information from the pre-scene. Okay, so that's the answer plan for the second subtask. Then moving on to the third one. On an unrelated matter, I'm sharing an article which was published on Environmental Watch, one of the most popular weekly magazines in Roundland. Please refer to the attachment. Okay, so let's go through the attachment and see what the information tells us. The logistics industry is silent polluter. That's the heading of the article. The logistics industry can have a significant impact on the environment and contribute to pollution in various ways. And here are some examples. Transportation emissions are there, and these transportation vehicles are emitting greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide, NOx, as well as there are particulate matter as well, which pollutes the environment, and this is a risk for public health. And there's packaging waste as well, because the logistics industry is also involved with packaging operations, so they are utilizing cardboard boxes, plastic wrap, and pallets, and all these things are contributing to a landfill in a negative manner. Then there's energy consumption as well, because significant greenhouse gas emissions are linked with energy consumption, and air pollution occurs as well. We have our, if you look at logistics or 3PL, there are warehouses, distribution centers, transportation vehicles. All these things need a lot of energy, so the energy consumption increases significantly. And because of 3PLs, it exposes the public to chemical pollution as well. Because we are, if you look at 3PLs, they are involved with transporting hazardous material, and if there are any leaks or whatever, then it's gonna lead to chemical pollution. Best examples are the British Petroleum's oil spill. Whilst transporting oil, there was an oil spill, or there was an oil leakage rather, which led to chemical pollution within the sea. So likewise, there are so many examples pertaining to chemical pollution within this industry, and this industry leads to noise pollution as well, because we are utilizing vehicles such as trucks, trains, and planes. All these things contribute towards noise pollution. And these issues have been highlighted by many leading environmentalists and is gaining a lot of traction. So the environmentalists are vocal about this. Environmentalists stated that the leaders within the logistic industry, such as Daistruk and Carry, are to be blamed. Now, this is a problem, because these guys had included our name within the newspaper article. This is gonna, expose us to significant reputational damage. And because of that, we need to do something about it. We don't know the requirement asset, but once you see something like this, you should be shocked and expect the worst when it comes to the company. The Roundlandian government is also planning to impose strict emission laws in the industry. Okay, the government had joined the bandwagon as well, given the pressure created by these environmentalists, and at the same time sticking to its net zero goals. So if you had gone through the annotated pre-scene, I've highlighted these points at the very end of the annotated pre-scene, because at the very end you would have seen newspaper articles, and within these newspaper articles, these net zero goals of the government had been highlighted, and I've covered these things within the third pre-scene analysis video, which can be accessed under the paid content as well. Okay, so things don't look too good for the company. Hope you can provide recommendations with reasons describing the strategy which Daistruk needs to adopt to minimize the impact of carbon loss. Okay, now the article highlights about pollution, which is connected with the logistics industry. And the article also highlights that the government had, the government is extremely interested about this situation, and they're going to change the laws given their net zero goals. So in such a context, in such an environment, you are supposed to provide recommendations with reasons describing the strategy Daistruk needs to adopt to minimize the impact of carbon loss. Okay, so according to the weightage provided, it's 50%, 25 marks allocated. So we are sticking to the same routine, determining the heading, managing impact of carbon loss, which is in bold and underlined format. And after that, step 2 is to come up with subheadings if needed, and then come up with bullet points. So that's exactly what you can see here. Managing impact of carbon loss, that's my main heading, bold and underlined format. Then I've come up with a set of bullet points. So the article highlights about certain concerns raised by different stakeholders. Okay, so when trying to reduce the impact of these carbon loss, it's better to manage these stakeholders properly. Okay, so first things first, I'm talking about environmentalists. I'm supposed to identify the main stakeholders. That's the first step towards managing this problem. So the first type of stakeholders which we need to focus on are the environmentalists, and these guys have a high level of interest because these guys are vocal about these issues which are highlighted within the magazine article. However, these environmentalists have a low level of power. Although that is the case, if these guys get together, they can harness the power of the government. Okay, so although these guys have a low level of power at the moment, if they can harness the power of the government, then we are screwed. Okay, because if the government takes action, we have to adhere to these things. So because of this situation, in order to make sure that because if a certain stakeholder's power is high as well as the interest is high, we consider them to be key players. We do not want these environmentalists to be key players. Why? Because if that is the case, then according to these environmentalists, us and Curry, our closest competitor, are to be blamed. Then the loss will definitely affect us in a negative manner. So in order to ensure that we do not make them key players, it's better not to negotiate directly with them, because if we try to negotiate directly with them, then that leads to bad publicity. One of the environmentalists could say, okay, Daistruk approached us and they tried to influence us to take a positive stand or not to take a stand against Daistruk. So likewise, such information can be publicized. So in order to totally avoid such a situation, it's not too prudent to negotiate directly. Instead, we should use the media to engage, thereby providing our own side of the story or providing Daistruk's narrative. So we can come up with a media conference and tell them what we think about the article, as well as tell them what type of steps we have taken or we are planning to take with regards to complying with these carbon laws. Okay, then the second type of stakeholders are the government. These guys definitely have a high level of power. Usually if you look at a government and the government's level of interest pertaining to private sector organization or a public limited company is low. Usually a government has a high level of power but a low level of interest. However, provided the information given within the newspaper article, it appears that the government has a high level of interest at the moment. So usually they have a low level of interest, but as per the information provided within the article, the government has a high level of interest on top of having a high level of power. So with regards to maintaining affairs with the government, it's better to explain that the laws affect other stakeholders as adversely as well, because if these laws are implemented, not just 3PLs will be affected, other related stakeholders who are connected with the logistics industry will be negatively affected. So the airlines will be negatively affected, the sea freight service providers will be negatively affected, some drivers might have to, let go. We might have to let go of some certain drivers, because if we stop utilizing, fleet which runs on fossil fuels, then we'd have to kick some drivers out. And so likewise, different connected stakeholders are, affected in an adverse manner. And when negotiating with the government, we can highlight this fact, because the government's responsibility is to ensure that, businesses operate without too much hindrances. And on top of that, to ensure that businesses contribute positively to the economic development of the country. So if we explain these things, explain as to how these stakeholders are adversely affected, then we might be in a position to convince the government not to, come up with these proposed laws which are going to be introduced on the industry. And we should engage directly with these guys, because these are key players. The government had become a key player because of the high level of power and high level of interest. And when engaging directly, how should we change the perspective of the government or the mindset of the government? We can use the past political affiliations, because as per the information provided within the pre-scene, our non-executive chair used to hold a ministerial position within the Roundlandian government. So these connections, as well as skills and capabilities, or the political affiliations, can be utilized for our benefit when carrying out negotiations. However, we have to ensure that these type of negotiations are done in an ethical manner. Okay, because just because our non-executive chair used to be a parliamentarian, or used to hold a ministerial position, it does not mean that we should utilize these affiliations for our benefit, forgetting about the negative aspects or the negativities the society will face because of pollution. Okay, so we can use our past political affiliations, that's what I'm saying, but we have to do it. If we are doing it, we have to do it in an ethical manner. And when engaging directly with the government, or when conducting negotiations with the government, we have to highlight that we believe in sustainability, as per again, as per the information which is highlighted within the pre-scene. If you look at our vision, the vision highlights that the company has a positive attitude towards sustainability. So we can highlight that. You get marks for bringing in relevant pre-scene information. And on top of that, if the government says that we need to fall in line, if the government goes for a change in law, then we have to change internal dynamics if needed. We have to have a positive mindset about it, because if the law changes, definitely we have to comply with the government's laws and regulations. Okay, and the other major stakeholders which we need to consider are individuals or companies such as shipping companies and airlines. It's better to collaborate with the shipping companies and airlines and try and reduce emissions in transportation. And we can ask them to support us if the change in law comes into the picture. We can ask them to contribute to the decision-making processes, so that everybody complies with the law. And we can conduct lobbying in this area. So when conducting lobbying, especially with the government, we have to, as I told you earlier, we have to highlight about the livelihoods of employees and shareholders, not just within Daistruk, but within the other stakeholders as well, or the livelihoods of these stakeholders who are going to get negatively affected. These things can be highlighted when carrying out lobbying activities with the government. However, lobbying should not be too excessive. If not, the government will think extremely, or will have an extremely negative attitude towards our business, and we will have to face the negative repercussions. Okay, and the next set of stakeholders which we need to consider are our competitor Carry. Why am I saying it? Because within the newspaper article, not just our main name is mentioned, Carry's name also had come up. So these guys have a high level of interest, just like us, because they are going to get negatively affected because of this newspaper article. So if both companies work together, the power will increase. So we are in a better position to lobby the government or influence the government if Carry joins with us when conducting this type of negotiations. So at the very end, I've provided a general analysis. It's better to conduct an internal investigation to figure out whether the information provided within the article are factual. If yes, we have to accept fault publicly. If not, it leads to negative publicity. So in order to ensure that we conduct businesses in the most ethical and legal manner, if there is a fault within us, we have to accept that fault publicly. And just accepting a fault won't help. We have to also inform the public about the type of steps which we have taken, which we are planning to take to mitigate the mentioned type of pollution which is created by our business. And these steps which we are planning to take with regards to mitigating our impact on the environment should be publicized via media as well as via our website. Okay, so that's the answer. So as you can see, the requirement states you are supposed to provide recommendations with reasons describing the strategy which Daistruk needs to adopt to minimize the impact of carbon loss. According to the reference material, so many stakeholders and their views are highlighted. So in order to come up with strategies to mitigate these problems, it's better to look into the needs of the different stakeholders and to manage each and every stakeholder. Okay, so this question is based on the Mendelov matrix. However, within the question, once you read the requirement, it does not tell you directly that you are supposed to utilize the Mendelov matrix. Okay, instead, it's simply saying that you are supposed to come up with a strategy to adopt which the company can adopt to minimize the impact of carbon loss. Okay, so that's exactly why I told you, you can't start typing answers straight away right after reading the requirement. Instead, you need to spend a little bit of time to figure out the type of answers you are supposed to develop. So that's exactly why you need to adhere to our answer planning technique. Okay, so so that's that. And step number 3, once you have the entire answer plan for the requirement, you are supposed to type your answer. So when it comes to typing the answer, it's about expanding the answer plan. When expanding the answer plan, you are supposed to use paragraphs, and each paragraph, as I told you earlier, needs to have 2 to 4 line sentences, and you need to come up with a paragraph per answer point. So if within your answer plan there are 9 answer points, then you need to have 9 paragraphs within your answer, and likewise. Okay, so this is what you're supposed to do when it comes to developing your answer plans and managing your time appropriately. So before we move on to the next area, any questions, guys? Hope you guys understood what I highlighted. Any questions? All right, so it seems like there aren't any more questions. Thank you very much for all the questions which you asked. So having said that, let me quickly move on to or highlight what we offer at TCS. So as you can see, we are on the website, which is www.study@tcs.com. And I'm on the SCS page, and via this page, you can check out our free content. Oops, sorry. Yeah, that's your cart. You can check your sample material in here. So if you are interested in purchasing on our study material, or investing on our study material, you can check out the sample material before you do so. And let me talk about the 3 courses which we are offering: the essential, value, and the premium package. So if you purchase the essential package, you would get your hands on the recorded versions of the 4 webinars, 5 exams with suggested answers, and 4 pre-scene analysis videos. So all this material is priced at £99, and this is suitable. The essentials pack is suitable for students who had aced their OTQ exams. So if you're coming through the CIMA general route, so if you had done your either an OCS or MCS exam previously, then you are conversant with the technicalities pertaining to a CIMA case study exam. And on top of that, if you had done your E3, P3 and F3 OTQ exams, then and if you had aced your OTQ exams, if you had gotten really good marks for E3, P3 and F3, then simply by going through the webinars or going through the technical information provided via the webinars and attempting the 5 mocks and going through the suggested answers, as well as going through the 4 pre-scene analysis videos, is what is essential or necessary for you to pass. Okay. But only remember, this is only relevant for students who are 100% comfortable with self-learning, because there's no tutor support provided. And on top of that, this is only suitable for students who are coming through the CIMA general route and who had aced their OTQ exams. Then looking at the value pack, you'd get your hands on the 3 items which comes under the essential pack. On top of that, you'd get your hands on something called an annotated pre-scene. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So this is the annotated pre-scene, which was relevant for the previous session. Okay, so as you can see, we have summarized the entire pre-scene via annotations. So this makes your life extremely easy rather than going through pages and pages of information. If you go through these points, you can easily understand what is highlighted within the pre-scene document. And on top of that, within as part of these annotations, we provide information pertaining to a probable exam scenarios which can be tested at your exam. And based on the hints provided by the examiner, we have also highlighted any syllabus content which can be tested, or any syllabus areas which can be tested at your exam as well. So if you go through these set of pages or this annotated pre-scene rather, then you are in a position to have an in-depth understanding about the entire pre-scene without spending a lot of time. Okay, so that's what you'd get your hands on if you go for the value pack, the annotated pre-scene. Then you'd get your hands on the industry analysis slides or the cards as well. So these are the type of industry analysis slides which you'd get your hands upon. Our industry analysis slides consists of 4 main areas. We provide an overview into the considered industry. We talk about the competitive landscape, as well as highlight the trends which the industry can face in the future, because these trends, based on these trends, you'd see scenarios at your real exam. And at the very end, we provide information pertaining to 2 real-life companies as well, with the intention of ensuring that you better understand the industry dynamics. Because as a senior finance manager, you need to have something called an outside-in approach. So what is an outside-in approach? Whenever you are assisting the decision makers, or since you are directly reporting to board members, you are supposed to provide recommendations. So whenever you are assisting these board members or providing them with your recommendations, you need to first think about how it's going to affect the industry, as well as how your decision is going to affect different types of stakeholders. So that's the type of outside-in approach you need to have when developing strategies for the company. So the best way to understand about the industry is to go through these set of slides which we are providing. And remember, all the information which is provided within this set of industry analysis slides are based on real life industry dynamics. So when you know what actually happens within the industry in a real sense, then it gives you additional knowledge pertaining to what your industry is about. And as a senior finance manager, it's better to know about your industry. So you'd get your hands on the industry analysis slides, as well as the financial analysis slides. So at the very end, you would have seen that the CIMA examiner provides you information pertaining to the financial performance of Daistruk, as well as its closest competitor, Carry. So considering all this information, we have analyzed the SOPL, the SOFP, as well as the statement of changes in equity. So when analyzing each of these financial statements, all relevant information is provided in a summarized yet extremely understandable format, so that you can easily remember the numbers. You need not do work out any numbers. We have done it for you. And And we have also conducted a ratio analysis, which and as you can see, each and every ratio is summarized or evaluated in a summarized yet easily understandable manner, again with the intention of ensuring that you better understand the financials of the company. And the same had been done for the closest competitor as well. So when analyzing the information, I've also considered or compared Daistruk's performance with that of carries. So you need not go through any of the financial statements. You need not work out any of the numbers. We have done it for you. So that's the type of material you would get your hands on with regards to the financial analysis slides. Then you'd get your hands on a set of slides pertaining to top 10 likely issues, which highlights the type of issues which can be thrown at you at your real exam. And you'd get your hands on the case study familiarization kit. You know, you can access a tutor via the live chat, and you'd get your hands on the theory recaps pertinent to E3, P3, and F3 syllabus content. And these are developed with the intention of ensuring that you brush up your knowledge in these theoretical elements, because as you saw when I was taking you through the answers of the mini mock, certain theoretical elements can be tested. So in such a context, if you are to provide a good answer, you need to know your theory. If not, just because you come up with practical recommendations, you cannot pass the exam. When coming up with practical recommendations which are of high quality, it's better to refer to or bring in your knowledge which you have gained by going through syllabus content. So the value pack is priced at £199. So if you're coming through the CIMA general route, however, if you struggled when attempting your OTQ exams, if you didn't get good marks for your OTQ exams, or if you failed OTQ exams, especially E3 and P3, if you failed your OTQs, then you need some type of tutor support. You need to get your hands on the additional industry analysis, financial analysis, as well as OTQ theory recaps and whatnot. So then you need to go for the value pack. Then looking at the premium package, it comes with all the material which comes under the value pack, plus you'd get your hands-on, or you'd be able to attempt all 5 mocks within our learning management system or our online mock exam platform. So why am I asking you guys to attempt the 5 mocks via the exam platform? First things first, it's developed to be akin to or to be similar as the Pearson VUE system which you would use at your real exam. So when attempting your mock exams, it's better to do it under simulated exam conditions, because when you're practicing something, you need to do it under real conditions. Then you are in a position to handle your stress properly. So if you do not use an exam platform, what happens is you'd have to develop your answers on a Word doc or whatever. So your timing might not be on the dot. Okay. For instance, I've seen students when attempting mock exams, they'd attempt task number 1 today, task number 2 tomorrow, and task number 3 day after tomorrow. But at the exam, you're not supposed to, just divide your time on a as per 1 hour slots and attempt your mock on 3 days, or your attempt your exam in 3 days rather. Instead, you are supposed to sit in one place for 3 hours and attempt the entire exam in one go. So I want you guys to do the same thing. I want you guys to get accustomed to real exam conditions, because if you do, chances of you handling exam stress is extremely high. Okay, so if you are in a position to handle exam stress, then you'd come up with better answers. So it's better to get accustomed to the exam stress before the exam rather than when you are writing your real exam. Okay, so you'd get your hands on, or you'd get access to the online mock exam platform. You can attempt all 5 mocks under exam conditions, and we are providing professional marking and one-to-one tutor feedback on 3 mocks 3, 4, and 5. And let me show you the type of feedback you'd get. So as you can see, this is an answer script provided by one of the students who attempted last time and passed. So each and every paragraph is evaluated, and I've made my comments. In-depth evaluations had been provided throughout the answer script, and that's exactly what you can see in here. All the problems had been highlighted, and on top of that, at the very end, on a subtask by subtask basis, you would be getting marks. As you can see, the student had failed the exam by because this individual only gained 67 marks. So we also have included a success rate which highlights the areas which the student really needs to work on. So as per this answer script, the student needs to work on task 2A and task 2B, as well as task 3A. Okay, so if you stick to our study plan, let's assume you attempt a mock on Tuesday. Then on Wednesday, you are supposed to watch the recorded versions of the master classes which we are conducting. I'll talk about master classes later. So you are supposed to watch the videos pertaining to the master classes. Then within 48 hours, if you attempted your mock on Monday, by Wednesday, you'd get tutor feedback. Then you'd know what your shortcomings are by looking at the success rate, as well as going through all the comments which the tutor is going to make. I'm going to mark your papers. Okay, so then you have Thursday, Friday, and Saturday to yourself to understand. Since you understand your shortcomings, you can work on getting rid of or eradicating these shortcomings within Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So on a weekly basis, if you stick to our study plan, on a weekly basis, you are supposed to attempt a mock. So on a weekly basis, you would be in a position to understand your shortcomings, and on a weekly basis, you would try to get rid of all these shortcomings. So in such a context, you'll be doing it under a relaxed situation, since you're attempting a mock per week, rather than waiting until the last 2 weeks or the last week to go through 5 mocks. Then even if you get tutor feedback, you won't have enough time to get rid of your issues or overcome your issues. So we want you guys to stick to our study plan, and if you do, your only task is going to be with regards to sitting in one place and attempting a mock per week. Everything else is handled by us. Okay, so that's what these are the type of services which we offer. So that's you saw the type of one-to-one feedback you'd get, and you'd get your hands on the answer plans pertaining to all 5 mock exams. As you saw a while back, the answer plan, it gives you a complete structure of the entire answer, and the answer plan is a summary of the entire answer. So rather than reading through pages and pages of suggested answers, you can simply refer to the answer plan and look at the structure, understand the structure, understand what is highlighted within the answer, understand what type of pre-seen information had been brought into the answer. So after and whilst you go through these answer plans, you would be revising theory as well. So you are achieving multiple things if you go through our answer plans, and you'd get your hands on the 12 master classes where we are explaining answers of all mocks. So we are conducting in total 15 master classes, and out of these 15 master classes, 6 will be done live. Okay, 6 will be done as live sessions, and the first live session is happening on the 25th, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, on the 20th of April, rather. Yeah, so it's happening on the 20th of April. So, and why are these master classes? What are you getting? I'll be explaining the answers as just like what I did right now, and whilst explaining the answers, I'll be teaching you theory as well as application. So if you're coming through an exemption route such as FLP, without knowing theory, you can't pass the exam. And on top of that, just because you know your theory, if you do not know how to apply it in a practical sense, still you can't pass the exam. So why are these master classes? What I'm doing is, I'll be taking you through the answer plans of all 5 mocks, and whilst taking you through these answer plans, I will be teaching you theory as well as application. And once you attend these master classes, you would have a good understanding about the type of scenarios which will be thrown at you, the type of questions which will be thrown at you, as well as the type of answers you are supposed to provide to get really good marks. Okay. And you would get access to 7 tutor-led weekly webinars as well as workshops. So every week up until your exam on a weekly basis, we will get in touch with you. We will keep tabs on you to see where you stand as a student. Okay. And this comes with a monthly installment plan option as well, where the total price of the package is £550. I need to say that we are offering a 50% discount on the first installment. So the price of the package is £500. And this can be paid via 3 installments. The first installment is £49, which includes the discount, and the 2 remaining installments comes up to £225 per month. Okay. And the premium package comes with a pass guarantee. So if you utilize the material provided under the premium package and still end up failing, which is highly unlikely, but if you still end up failing, you can gain access to the same package in your subsequent session free of charge. Okay. And remember that all products are available until the 31st of August 2023. So if you had aced your OTQ exams and if you're coming through the CIMA exemption, CIMA general route, go for the essential package. If you're coming through the CIMA general route, however, if you had failed your OTQ exams previously, or if you had struggled with E3 and P3, go for the value package. And if you're coming through an exemption route such as FLP, it's of utmost importance that you learn theory as well as application. This might be your first a CIMA examination which you are attempting. Then you need to really get accustomed to the technical nitty-gritties. You need all the support from a tutor. Then you need to, we urge you guys to go for the premium package. So let me also talk about the study plan. You can access the study plan via the website itself, which gives you an indication about what you are supposed to do on a weekly basis. So we are in week number 2. You are supposed to attend the 3rd webinar, which we have done already. Then the masterclass is happening on Thursday, the next Thursday, or the 20th of April at 18 GMT or 7 PM UK time. Okay, this is going to be a live workshop where I'll be explaining the answers of mock number 1, and you are supposed to attempt mock number 2 via the exam platform within this week. So as you can see, it's just a matter of just attending webinars and referring to study material. Other than that, the only serious work which you are supposed to do is with regards to finding 3 hours of your time or allocating 3 hours of your time and attempting a mock on a weekly basis. And towards the last week, you'll be done with attempting mock exams, whilst all the other students are scrambling for time or trying to find time to attempt mock exams, trying to figure out what their shortcomings are. You are relaxing. You are simply referring to the answer plans of all 5 mocks. So you'd be revising theory as well as you'd be revising your application skills. You'll be, revising pre-seen information. So you are simply supposed to refer to the answer plans and reread the annotated pre-seen and stop preparations a day prior to the exam, sleep, eat and rest well, all these things, and how to do it and why I'm suggesting you to do these things will be highlighted within the 4th webinar. And if you are not part of our WhatsApp group, I saw, people, sending me messages saying that, they are not part of the WhatsApp group. You can simply click on this button and join it. Okay. All right, so that's what we offer. Then moving on to the fourth part of tonight's session. Before that, let me address this concern. Kelly is asking a question: would the answer screen look like a Word format? How many years of past exam paper should we attempt for exam preparation? So Kelly, yeah, it would look like something like a Word format, but you won't get all the technical capabilities of Word, because you won't be able to do a spell check. There's no method of working on your paragraph alignment and whatnot. And moving on to the second part of your question, how many years of past exam paper should we attempt for exam preparation? So we do not, actually speaking, you can go through past exam papers. However, Kelly, we do not recommend you to do it because past exam papers or the past exam variants are based on different pre-seen material or different case studies. So the industry dynamics, especially when it comes to the SCS exam, since you need to have an outside-in approach, there's absolutely no point of going through questions which are relevant to a different industry and which are relevant to a different pre-scene. So as you saw in today's discussion, looking at the directors, the question pertaining to directors remuneration, I said that the remuneration committee, the composition of it is in line with the corporate governance regulation. And I said that the nomination committee's composition is not aligned with corporate governance regulation. So that is relevant to this time's pre-scene. But if you look at last time's pre-scene, the composition of the committees are totally different. So that's exactly why we do not encourage our students to go through past variants. If you want to do it, that's totally fine. But this only leads to confusion. Instead, when attempting mocks, you need to ensure that pre-seen relevant mocks are attempted by a student. So we would rather urge you to invest on pre-seen relevant mock exams. I hope I addressed your concern, Kelly. Okay. All right. Seems like there aren't. You're welcome, Kelly. Okay. So we are moving on to the last part of tonight's webinar, which is about bouncing back from failure. So there could be a set of students who attempted, last time's exam, but could not pass it. So you need to figure out whether you gave your best shot or not. So you need to conduct your own personal reflection and try to figure out where you went wrong in your exam. Okay, you need to diagnose the reasons first and address them this time. So you have to be honest to yourself. There might have been multiple shortcomings. I will be talking about the common shortcomings which leads to a failure in a while. So whilst I'm talking about these shortcomings, try to figure out whether you committed the same mistakes, and if that is the case, you need to ensure that you avoid all these mistakes this time, or else you cannot pass the exam. Okay. So it's better to refer to the mini mock as well as the suggested answers and the examiner's report. You need not actually refer to the examiner's report. You are supposed to simply adhere to the guidelines which we have provided via the 4 webinars. And if you do, you get to know what is highlighted within the examiner's report, especially looking at webinar number 4, which is supposed to happen the Saturday after next. I will be talking about the examiner's comments, which are taken from the examiner's report. So you need to understand what the examiner wants you to do. Then you'd be in a position to figure out what your shortcomings were. And last time you might not have opted for tutor feedback on your mock exam answer scripts. And if you failed, it's better to go for, tutor feedback this time, because some students, they have the capability of, going through the suggested answer and comparing their answer script to the suggested answer to figure out what the shortcomings or what the gaps are. But these type of students are, a minority. If you look at the total number of students attempting the SCS exam. So if you feel that you are not in the best position to compare your answer script to that of the suggested answer, then you cannot you are not in a position to gain good marks at your exam, even if you are attempting your exam for the second, third, fourth, fifth, or sixth time. Okay, what I've seen is when a student keeps on committing the same mistakes over and over again, they end up failing the exam on multiple occasions. So in order to avoid such a thing, it's better to opt for tutor feedback and see where you stand in an actual sense as a student. Okay, and after you understand all your shortcomings, you need to come up with an action plan. And your action plan should be to work smarter than the previous attempt. So how can you work smarter than the previous attempt? Simply stick to our study plan. Then you'd be attempting a mock per week. And when you attempt a mock under simulated exam conditions, as I told you earlier, you'd get accustomed to exam stress, exam pressure, then you'd know how to handle it. And on top of that, if you stick to our answer planning technique and time management technique, you'd be in a position to come up with better answers. If you go through our answer plans, which we are providing, you are in a position to understand what you have written within your answer, as well as what is highlighted within the answer plan, thereby being in a position to understand your real shortcomings. And on top of that, you'd get your hands on tutor feedback. And after you go through tutor feedback, you'd realize what your real shortcomings are, and you'd have enough time at your disposal to work on these shortcomings and get rid of these shortcomings on a weekly basis. So just simply stick to our study plan. Then it's just a matter of just attempting a mock per week. Everything else is handled by us. Okay, that's a smarter plan rather than waiting until the last 2 weeks or the last week. And like a majority of the students, you'd lack sleep. You'd find it extremely hard to balance your work as well as study time. You won't have enough time to sleep. Even you won't eat properly. You'd be under a lot of stress before the exam. And if you are stressed, if you are not too confident, you won't pass your exam. So it's better to stick to our study plan and work smarter this time. Okay, so highlighting the common reasons for failure, most students, since they run out of time, since they do their preparations just a week or two before the exam, they don't have enough time to attempt mock exams. So because of that, they attempt just 2 or 3 mocks. You cannot pass the exam by attempting just 2 or 3 mocks. Why am I suggesting this? Because in order to cover the entire SCS syllabus, E3, P3, and F3 syllabuses, you need to attempt 5 mock exams. You can't cover the entire syllabus by just attempting 2 or 3 mocks. Okay, so if this was a shortcoming last time, you have to ensure that you attempt 5 mocks this time. Again, do not wait until the last moment. It's not too late. We are still in the second week. So if you start right now, you have enough time to attempt mocks on a weekly basis and work on your shortcomings. Because if you do not work on your shortcomings, just because you attempt mock exams, you can't pass. Just because you attempt 5 mock exams, don't think that, okay, I'm going to pass the exam. You can't do this because this is an extremely competitive examination. This is not easy. This is not like, attempting an academic qualification where you can simply, your knowledge will be tested mainly via assignments. So you have enough time to do your research and submit an assignment. That is not the case here. This is a professional qualification. So in such a context, just because you attempt mocks, you are not going to pass. You have to ensure that you allocate some time on a weekly basis to overcome your shortcomings. So you have to practice 5 mock exams. And not practicing mocks under simulated exam conditions is a killer. As I told you earlier, you need to sit in one place and allocate 3 hours and do the entire mock in one go, because that's exactly what you are going to do at the exam. I do not want you guys to attempt task number 1 today, task number 2 tomorrow, and number 3 day after tomorrow, and likewise, because then you'd be cheating yourself. If you did it last time, absolutely no point of doing it this time, because you need to get yourself accustomed to exam stress and exam conditions. Then you know what you do when you panic. Okay, so please avoid all these situations this time. And lack of technical knowledge is a killer. If you do not know your E3, F3, and P3, particularly E3 and P3, you cannot pass this exam. This is totally relevant to students coming through an exemption route. Although students think that once you do the MCQs, which are there pertaining to the FLP program, although you think you'd gain the necessary level of knowledge about these theoretical components, that is not the truth. You can ask from your colleagues, you can ask yourself actually about how you fared last time, because as you saw, when developing answers, you need to know your theory. In the second subtask, I was talking about corporate governance, which falls under E3 and P3 syllabuses. In the first subtask, I was talking about the beta, as well as how it's gonna affect our cost of equity, our share prices, our dividends, and whatnot, F3 related knowledge. Then in the third subtask, I utilize the Mendelov matrix, although I did not mention the name. That's exactly what I looked into. That's your knowledge pertaining to E3. So throughout the three subtasks, theoretical knowledge was tested. So if you do not know your theory, you can't pass the exam. So this time you need to brush up your knowledge in these areas. So the best thing to do is to attend the master classes which we are conducting, because if you attend the master classes, you'd gain a good understanding about the answers of all 5 mocks. Whilst understanding the answers, you will learn theory as well as application, because as I told you earlier, just because you know your theory, you can't pass the exam, because if you do not know to apply it, there's no chance of passing the exam. So in order to achieve these two things, to learn theory as well as improve your application skills, you need to attend the master classes. If this was a shortcoming last time, attend the master classes. And shortcomings in application of knowledge, such as recommending controls. Yeah, you saw how theoretical knowledge is applied in a real sense in today's session as well. So if this is a shortcoming, again, I urge you guys to attend the master classes. And inappropriate answering technique, if you started typing the answer straight away, then definitely the quality of your answer would have been extremely low. And most students, they do not know how to manage your time. So simply stick to the answering technique as well as the time management technique, which we highlighted within tonight's webinar. Although I taught you these things, you cannot do it on your own for the first time. For instance, I said you are supposed to take 5 minutes to read through the question and allocate something like 15 to 20 minutes to develop an answer plan for the entire task. But when you do it for the first time, you'd see that you take something like 30 to 40 minutes to develop an answer plan. That's pretty basic because you are doing this for the first time. It's like driving a car. If you're driving a car for the first time, you can't do it. You'd feel a lot of stress. Yeah. Your reaction speed will be extremely slow. You'd overthink. So the same problems would be seen when you are attempting our answer planning technique as well as time management technique. But if you keep practicing this, by the time you attempt mock 3, 4, and 5, you'd realize that you are in a position to, adhere to the best practices which we have highlighted. So you need to keep practicing these things. Just because you learned these answer planning technique as well as time management technique, you can't replicate it at your real exam. Don't think that just because you know this knowledge, you can, implement it within your exam without practicing it. No, when attempting the 5 mock exams, you need to keep practicing these answer planning technique and time management technique. If that is the case, at the exam, you can simply replicate what you have practiced and be in a position to save up enough time and come up with high quality answers. And lack of evaluation is a killer. As I told you earlier, most students do not have the capability of going through their own answer script and comparing it to the suggested answer. So we have made your life easier because we are providing one-to-one tutor feedback. So you need not rely on your own evaluations. Instead, you can rely on tutor evaluations, which is going to give you a good understanding about where you stand as a student. And not adhering to a study plan would have been your biggest problem, because as I told you earlier, most students, they end up attempting exams just a week or two before the exam. That's extremely dangerous, because you cannot get everything done within just 2 weeks and you'd be extremely stressed. Instead, stick to the study plan which we have highlighted. If you do, it's just a matter of attempting a mock per week. We are handling everything else. All right, so let me remind you about the 50% discount, which is going to expire by next Sunday. So we are offering a 50% discount on the first installment of the premium package. So the price is £99. So you'd get your hands on the premium package, the first installment of it, at £49. All right, any questions, guys? So we have come to the end of the session. Any questions before we wind up? All right, seems like there aren't any questions. So I'm gonna end the session. So before I do that, let me remind you about how you can contact us. You can simply drop us a message via our website, which is www.study@tcs.com, or email us on info@study@tcs.com, or simply drop us a message on WhatsApp via this number, which can be found at the very end of our website as well. And I invite you guys to follow us on our socials or social media pages. These recorded versions of the webinars will be uploaded under free content via our website as well as on YouTube. I want you guys to check out our blog posts. Simply, log into our website and click on this button. And, by referring to these blog posts, you are in a position to gain an understanding about the technical nitty-gritties pertaining to your exam. And we will be sharing 3 TikTok videos summarizing the entire pre-scene within 9 minutes, so that you can easily keep watching them on a daily basis to keep yourself reminded about the information, the important information which is highlighted within the pre-scene. So then you need not memorize all the information which is provided in the pre-scene. So these things are provided free of charge. Although we usually release the TikTok videos by the second week. I'm extremely sorry. We've been extremely busy with these times sessions. So in such a context, expect these TikTok videos to be released within the upcoming weeks. All right. Having said that, it brings us to the end of tonight's session. Thank you very much, guys, for joining in. I hope you guys gain something out of this. I expect to see you guys at the 4th webinar, where I'll be taking you through the examiner's comments, as well as telling you or giving you tips about what you need to do to develop your confidence both before the exam as well as whilst attempting your exam. So thank you very much. I'll see you guys week after next. Good night and take care.